Great to have you here. Thanks for your company. Now, majority shareholders in ADB, Belstar Capital Limited and Starmount Development Limited have sued the Bank of Ghana for annulling their shares in the bank. Now, they're asking the High Court to declare the central bank's decision null and void. Here is a News Desk report.
In March this year, a consortium with majority shares of Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, led by Belstar Capital, pledged their shares, proceeds, entitlement, and voting rights to Unibank, which would have given the now defunct bank a controlling stake in ADB. The Bank of Ghana later dismissed the reported share pledge. In the latest decision by the central bank taken 2 weeks ago, the Bank of Ghana cancelled the consortium's majority shares in ADB, claiming the shares were acquired inappropriately. The Bank of Ghana also banned all directors appointed to ADB's board by the consortium. In a writ filed by Belstar Capital and Starmount Development Limited, they contest the legal basis for the central bank's decision. They want the court to declare the BOG's decision as unlawful and null and void. They also want a declaration that the central bank's findings that the plaintiffs are unfit and improper persons to continue to hold shares in ADB is unlawful. They are also asking the court to declare as illegal the BOG's directive that the directors appointed by the plaintiffs cease to be directors of ADB with immediate effect. There's also relief seeking to stop the Bank of Ghana and the Central Securities Depository from conspiring against the business of the plaintiffs. The writ comes amidst the central bank's decision to dissolve Unibank and 4 other banks after they were found to be insolvent.
Well, I've been joined by Joy Business Editor George Riafe. George, it is interesting to note the particular development with regards to this story. Now, tell us about the Bank of Ghana, especially with the central bank saying that the consortium did not acquire the shares appropriately.
But let's a little bit of a background on how it got here, because
Definitely.
ADB used to be owned by government and then the Bank of Ghana and then some other state institutions. But in the process of trying to reform the bank and make it move away from just an agric bank to more of a commercial bank, they thought that they needed capital to do certain things, and therefore they should give a fraction of the business by floating the shares on the public to bring in some additional investors. Now, during the IPO, some individuals got in. Belstar was one, and some other investors as well, EDC and all those things got in, and then they bought some shares. Now, during that process, it appears that government lost significant stake in the bank, and therefore Belstar became, together with the other consortium of investors, had the controlling stake and were even on the verge of becoming majority shareholders in this bank. So it went on, and then later Unibank came in and said that through Belstar, the fact that Belstar, and they also supported Belstar to make that acquisition, they think that, or they believe that they can move and take over the bank. And that is when all these problems started. There were issues with Unibank, what they have to do. But the Bank of Ghana came in and said that, okay, they have done their own audit of this whole transaction, and they believe that it wasn't done well. The necessary structures and laid down procedure to go about this was wrong, and therefore they would want to declare or see that those acquisitions were null and void, and government automatically assumes as ownership of the bank.
Okay, so the question I'm sure on many minds is then what happens to Belstar and the other company now when government takes over those shares? Doesn't mean they've totally lost out on everything.
And again, that's one clarity that we're all looking forward to. That what happens to the shareholders? Are you going to give their monies back to them, or what? There's certain claims that the Bank of Ghana made also in the statement for them. They thought it was warring to more of brand them as criminals and all. They've argued that they've been in this whole investment banking business for quite a long time. And even one of them who's behind Belstar, who's currently the board chair of SG, thought that he's been in this business for quite a long time. Let's even clear that tag that we use unapproved means, or if I should say, in acquiring these shares, and therefore we need to be taken on or maybe sanctioned and all the rest. And that is why, after the rumors that they're going to go to court, indeed, that has been actualized.
All right. But talking about the inappropriate means, did the Bank of Ghana exactly tell us what it means by that?
There were instances where the Bank of Ghana itself said that Unibank took monies from the Bank of Ghana in a form of liquidity support, and then they gave it out to Belstar and the other consortium of investors to make this acquisition. And therefore, they thought that that was not right. They also claimed that when you're going to make some of these purchases or acquire these shares, it has to be approved by the Bank of Ghana. And therefore, since that was not done, it means that they have to reverse those transactions and all the rest. And that is where they've also been talking about and all those things.
All right, and I may just want to ask finally that is this the first time you're seeing something like this, the Bank of Ghana annulling shares and, you know, the shareholders or a certain consortium going to court over the matter?
Maybe this is the first time it's being made public.
Exactly.
And the Bank of Ghana has always told us that they've always been on the market in terms of sanctioning these commercial banks. But it looks like now they want to send some signals across that, listen, be warned. What is the whole essence of name and shame? You want to send signals across to other players that if you go this way, we are going to deal with you.
All right, George, so let's just move away slightly from the ADB issue and this consortium suing the Bank of Ghana to the Consolidated Bank. Now, we hear that KPMG is taking some actions. In fact, they've taken some stocks.
So more of an on-ground assessment. So we know from the books, sometimes when you go on the ground and you do all these things in accounting when it comes to auditing, because you want to appreciate the situation on the ground. So you would submit your accounts to me that you have X amount of assets in your book, you have this amount of this in your books. I want to go on ground to establish that, for instance, that beige bank offices are easily gone. How many assets are in, how many staffs are in, let's even do a head count and all those things. So them being the receiver or an institution that has been appointed to oversee this entire process of this liquidation and all the rest, they want to go down and look into the books and really establish that what document that have been submitted to the Bank of Ghana indeed exists on the ground. Don't forget that Bank of Ghana, for instance, argued or said that Unibank reported something and when they went on ground it was different. And therefore, you want to do that assessment and realize that if they say that they have X amount of staff on the book and they are paying them this amount of money, indeed, that is what was on the ground. And that's why they are going out, doing that stock taking of all the branches of these banks that has been liquidated.
And George, another interesting thing is watching this particular development closely with the issue of the UT and Capital banks. We saw such a mad rush by customers to withdraw their deposits, but it doesn't seem to be the same. I think
that the experience from UT and Capital Bank shows that when these regulatory measures are taken, you're not going to lose your money, because the perception was that, and the problem has always been with the retail clients, because for the corporate clients, they do appreciate these things. They will just take their time. For those who want to move their monies, they will not necessarily even go to the banking hall, use the various IT platforms to make that request, internet banking, and then move the funds. They might call their relationship managers that, I want to move X amount of funds. Can you do that for me? So it looks like the way the first one was handled, from experiences, I knew people who had accounts in UT, and as we speak right now, their accounts are still there. People who had investments in UT and rolling over to GCB, it is there, and they are still getting their return. So sometimes how message spreads through the word of mouth. You've seen this and you think that, after all, this is how these things happen. So there is no need to rush there that, I'm going to take my money. No.
Well, thank you very much, Joy Business Editor George Riafe, for giving us some updates on the Bank of Ghana being sued by Belstar Capital Limited for annulling its shares in ADB, and also giving us a quick update on the consolidation of 5 banks that were dissolved earlier in the week.